Nice. Chexican Drew here. Okay, I'm gonna start my 6.87 patch analysis. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't put too much thought into it, but let's start this shit. Okay, so first of all, I'll pick ranked uh, with ban voting basically. So everyone gets to vote for a hero to ban, and at the end of it, half of those heroes will get banned, kind of randomly. So it's really nice that they incorporated some banning into it. And there's a bunch of shit here, but overall, I just kind of found that the creeps scale a little bit better, the tower's a little bit stronger, and the range creeps give more XP now than the melee creeps, which is actually a big change with Lich. It's because Lich can take the like your allied range creeps XP. So um, but the problem is that the range creep also has less HP, so it'll convert to less mana for the Lich. So it really gives it, like before it's like obvious choice that you always get the melee creep. But now it's sort of like, oh, do I want XP or do I want more mana? You know, you kind of have to make that choice. Um, Other than that, I think that one big change is the scan. So what this does is that there's a little box on top of your minimap, and when you click it, so it refreshes every 4.5 minutes, and it scans a 900 AoE for 8 seconds. So what happens is that you don't actually see, you don't get vision of it, you don't see how many heroes are in it, but it basically gives you an indication of yes or no, whether or not there are heroes in that area. And it doesn't detect Roche, but it does detect smoked units. So I don't really see this playing that big of a part in pub play, at least at my MMR. But I think some really well placed scans in the pro level for like during smoke ganks and stuff like that will play a difference. But really, for most of us watching me do this patch analysis, I think it's pretty inconsequential, to be honest. Okay. So now I don't know where it is. There's just a bunch of stuff. I summarized it into my own notes. I got that the melee gold bounty is 2 less gold, but the gold increases 7.5 minutes up from 1 to 2. So after 15 minutes, the gold bounty actually exceeds what it was previously. Evasion also works pseudo randomly now. Everything is becoming pseudo random, and the centaur camp now spawns 2 small centaurs. So which means that you get double the gold gain and you get the XP there. So I think that's a really good buff because I always found the centaur camp only has 2 creeps, and it was, yeah, I think this is a good change. And one really big terrain change that I found was that they removed the tree on the dire cliff right above the top rune. I don't know where that is right here, but I read through that whole batch of notes, and I think that that tree on top of that top rune on the dire side is just such a nightmare for supporting. It's just because you put it on one side, you get better vision, but on the other side, you get vision of the rune. You know, so it's like you're trying to make me choose between getting vision of the ramp or vision of the rune, and I think that's really unfair. So I really appreciate that they removed that tree. Okay, so we have some new items. So I think these are actually really cool. Should I actually put a shirt on? Nah, it's just you guys watching. Honestly, no one's gonna watch my patch analysis. Let's be real, guys. Um, Bloodthorn. So Orchid, Chrysalis, and a recipe. So I think this is a really cool new item. It's a good alternative to the MKB because it when you cast basically your Orchid, all attacks on the silenced target, including allies, gain True Strike and a 1.35 critical strike. So it's basically an Orchid, but it grants True Strike. So I think that it's a good alternative to the MKB because it's also more team fight oriented. Whereas the MKP, you would just buy that on your core, like right click hero, and you send the VOD to your girlfriend. Man. So Yeah, so I think this is more team fight oriented. Like you have some, like bitch ass PA or something. I don't know, someone with crazy evasion, and yeah, I really like it. Team fight, Echo Saber. So this is basically like Weaver's move where you can get a chance for a double hit. So I think this would work really well with anything with a passive, so such as Slark with his stat steal, essence shift, OD with the insteal. You have like SB with his bash, or anything with like sort of a crit or a bash like PA. I think that'll be really effective. Sven with like because you can hit two like battle fairy stuff. Just I think just in general, um, anything with a crit or like stat steal would be really good for that. So I think this is a really cool item to get to. I think it'll come and play a lot. A lot of these items I like. There's a lot of new shit. I'm not gonna go too into it, but Blightstone, I like that. Instead of a recipe, it's actually an item. So this replaced the recipe in a lot of items, and I really like that. Like it's like a little desolator basically. Infused raindrops. Basically, it gives you sort of like a damage resistance. And so once you receive over 50 magic damage, it'll proc and you'll block 120 magic damage. So it's kind of good against like you can only get it after 3 minutes, but it'll be good against some nukers. So you're playing against a co-op, or you're playing against I don't know, like a Skywrath Mage. I don't know, just anything with some early burst damage. Zeus, like it'll be really cool to see that blocked. Wind Lace, just like a movement speed item. Tome of Knowledge is super nostalgic. I don't know if it'll really come into play because restocks every 10 minutes. I don't think it's like a big deal. I don't know how much the stock is, but I think this is just a really shout out to the old school Warcraft 3 modding community, because this was in every single Warcraft 3 mod, and you would just go to base and these would be dirt cheap and you'd be like non-stop leveling up. This is really cool. I like this. I like this Hurricane Pike. So basically what happens is that it's a 4-staff Dragonlance and a recipe. So when you cast it on your enemy, both of you go apart from each other 450 units. So yeah. So both of you go across, and then it removes any like range restrictions. So you have full attack. If you're a ranged hero, you have full attack of the hero that you 4-staffed. So you both move apart. So that'd be really good if you're an enchantress, you're trying to create some space. But the problem is it doesn't give vision. So it'll go really well with like a track or a amplify damage, or just like maybe an invis character, just anything to give you vision, or really well placed wards, anything that'll give you vision of it. And yeah, I can see that being really good on even something like Wind Ranger, where you want to focus fire and you don't want to get damaged, right? You don't want to be, so you can basically be as far as you want. I noticed that on Enchantress, it actually now the impetus has they decreased your maximum distance for how much the damage can increase up to. So I thought it would be a lot better on that, but I guess not, because my theory crafting was like, oh, you can use Hurricane Pike, and then you can also get a blink and blink farther away, and someone else can force staff you even farther away, and then you just like destroy it because you basically have no cast range for your right click. But I guess that's not the case. It's still very, very strong, but it'll be good on a lot of heroes. Okay, so Bissell Blade now has damage block, and actually earlier in the patch it talked about how damage block now also affects illusions. So I'm sort of thinking, anti-mage gets Skull Basher, and anti-mage has illusions. Well, he usually gets a Manta, and now Abyssal. So maybe like this is sort of like a logical next step for maybe anti-mage, because since damage block also affects illusions. Although the damage block isn't actually that much, but and he also doesn't usually go for a Vanguard, but we'll see. We'll see. Like this is kind of neat that damage block will affect illusions now. Diffusal Blade, there's a slight nerf. Let's find the Diffusal Blade. Slight nerf for illusions, but buff for heroes. So illusions, so if you're playing PL, you know, illusions are reduced just a slightly, but for being used by a hero, the mana burned actually increased. So I guess whereas before, most of the time you'll only see it on illusion heroes. I haven't really seen people play Diffusal Blade actually that much, you know, on very rare occasions. But I think they want to increase it so that it's more viable in more styles of play. You can TP and use Hurricane Pike. Oh yeah, that's so true. Yeah, that's really cool. Hurricane Pike is really cool. I really like that mechanic. Flying Courier cost reduced 200 to 150. Yes, you know, and also I think later on you see Observer wards, or no, that wasn't the change, but there's a bunch of like, oh, TP is decreased to 50 gold. So I just think in general, supports have a lot more money to play with. They've started that trend maybe like 3 or 4 patches ago, and playing support just gets better and better now. Mask of Madness is my next item. Active damage amplification reduced 30 to 25%. You know, it's not like a big change, but I love Mask of Madness builds. So I just really like that Mask of Madness has any buff at all. I'm all about the moms. Observer Ward. So they changed the duration from 7 to 6 minutes, and the restock is also less, and the cost is also less. But basically, you should be using it the same amount. Wind Lace sounds so sexy. Hell yeah. So you should be using it the same amount. So I think this just makes it so that supports actually need to be a little bit more active in the game. I wish Rage was wearing a Wind Lace right now. Okay, so yeah, Observer Wards, I think just slightly more active from 7 minutes to 6 minutes. You know, you need to buy a bit more wards during the game, but also that this means that the warding isn't as devastating, right? Because your wards restock sooner, you know, and it's less cost, just everything. So I think getting dewarded isn't as devastating, but also you need more active supports. And I actually kind of do like that the duration decreased, because I find that, you know, sometimes the ward that you place is so important, because it's just there and you have very limited supply of wards. By having it decreased and having more wards out, I think it allows for more versatile play. Like sometimes, you know, I'm warding the river, but then maybe within those 7 minutes, a really big team fight has happened, and you know, I actually want to do some aggressive warding. You know, go into their jungle, ward their jungle up, block some camps, you know, ward some maybe their high ground. You know, but sometimes a lot of shit can happen in those 7 minutes, and I know it's only 7 to 6 minutes, but I just think that this is a good move for it to, you know, kind of become a little bit more versatile. TP's 75 to 50. I put an exclamation mark there. People are kind of joking that, you know, slowly it'll just be free, and then it'll just become a standard button that everyone presses, which is B. Because in League of Legends, everyone has a standard town portal scroll, and they just press B, and I think it's on a 40-second cooldown or something, and it can only teleport you back to base. So we're League of Legends now. Vanguard HP regeneration increased from 6 to 8. So this affected all of Vanguard's anything that you can build with the Vanguard. It's a slight buff. I think Vanguard is, you know, a lot of heroes get it, but it's kind of like, I don't know. This is nice to see a little buff to it. Let's look at some hero changes. So the main ones I found, okay, so Arc Warden, I couldn't not mention it because there's a huge list of shit. But basically, I think the biggest thing is that magnetic field only evades attacks done from outside the field. So this is sort of like what I feel like intuitively a lot of people thought might happen, because it creates this giant magnetic field, and you're like, oh, I have, or like, Arc Warden would be inside and you're shooting from outside and it's getting 100% evasion. And you're like, oh shit, maybe I have to stand inside the bubble, right? And you stand inside, it's still evasion. So now it actually works that way, where if you're inside the bubble, you get evasion from stuff outside the bubble. So I think that's fair. That Arc Warden is kind of too OP when played correctly. So a lot of nerfs. Tempest Double. This is a really big nerf. Ability and item cooldowns now persist on the unit. So you can't just Tempest Double and then it refreshes your everything. Dagon, your Necro Book, everything. And also Tempest Double, this is a really, really big one. No longer replicates Divine and Gem. Divine Rapier and Gem. So this is a huge, huge nerf to Arc Warden. Now we have the Bloodseeker. Stream is lagging for me. Oh no. Is it lagging for good? Next one I want to talk about is Bloodseeker. Because they added an Ags to the Bloodseeker, and it gives 2 charges of Rupture within 40 seconds, with 40 seconds push. I think this is very situational. I think it is strong. Like you basically have 2 ults, but I don't know if it's worth it over other items, because keep in mind that the Ags is worth like 4,200, and like if you're getting an Bissell Blade anyway, maybe it's just better to get an Bissell Blade for that extra stun. Or as I was talking to Ryan, and he was saying how in general, like, people, you can just TP out, or it's just not, I don't know. I think it might have been like if you have an Alk on the game, then like an Alk Ags upgrade, where you don't really want to do it, but if Alk has a lot of extra money, you might as well give everyone Ags kind of thing. I think that's the general idea, that a lot of heroes not necessarily benefit from it, but stat gain and just slightly better stuff, but not like a core item. I mentioned that Crystal Maiden has a minor buff. It's fine now. Crystal Maiden has a minor buff. Always nice to see supports get buffed. Crystal Maiden, I haven't really seen her played that much. So yes. DP. Spirit Siphon has a major nerf. So they just basically rebalance a lot of the Spirit Siphon stuff. And pure magical damage no longer goes to spell immunity. Duration increase, but range decrease, base strength decrease. I just think no longer grants vision. People just thought Spirit Siphon was a little bit too strong, and I think this might bring her back to where she's supposed to be. I mentioned that DK has a general buff because like some heroes I don't mention when they're buffed because they're just like really minor reworks, but I think I do mention certain things where it's not like a ability change or anything, and I would just write like general buff, minor buff kind of thing, because a lot of these like percentages you don't really notice, or these cooldowns you might not really notice, be like, oh, like what was the cooldown before in the game, but when you're playing the game, you like at our level at least, because we don't like memorize all the cooldowns and everything. You most of the time you might just be playing, be like, oh, DK is kind of strong. So I think this is one of those cases where there's like slight changes that benefit the hero overall. Earthshaker, I really want to talk about Earthshaker because it's pretty exciting that they got a rework on the Aghanim Scepter. So there's a lot of theory crafting online, but basically, I think that this is a major buff. It's kind of debatable, but I think it'll work out because you can skip Blink Dagger and go for an Ags. So it actually costs a little bit more, because at first I was pumped because I thought that the Echo Slam will also work like an Ags Echo Slam. but it doesn't. But at the same time, you have this 5 second basically blink, a 5 second blink with a stun on impact, and it's not, you don't get into shit by like whatever, shit happens and like you can't blink. I'm really the biggest problem was Zeus and his like static field or whatever, but they actually changed that so it doesn't affect Blink Dagger anymore. Like thank God. But in general, though, I think having like a non cooldown disableable blink every 5 seconds just gives Earthshaker a lot of versatility. And if you've ever played against like a core enchant totem Earthshaker, it's actually really stupidly strong, right? If you if Earthshaker can sort of like steamroll, because the like that percentage gain on the right click is just so massive. Just one hit, you're like half health, and then enchant totem again half health, or like your whole health, just 2-hit KO. So I do like it. It makes Earthshaker less of a just pop in alt, fissure, run away kind of thing. I think it also gives him a bit more versatility in the matchup to sort of jump around, stun different heroes, just cause a lot of chaos in general. It reminds me of Winston in Overwatch, where he can just like jump when he ults, he can just jump around all over the map and just like punch people. I think that's basically Earthshaker with this Aghanim Scepter. So I think that's really cool. If you are going for the epic Echo Slams, I think Blink Dagger is still the more like, well, I don't, not that I think, but Blink Dagger is still more cost effective. It's an instant blink. People can't see you coming. Because in this case, Earthshaker actually kind of flies, so they can see you coming. So Blink Dagger is instant. There's the 300 more range, and it's like 2,000 less gold. But I think overall, though, maybe you want both on it, but I think Aetherlands with Aghanim Scepter on Earthshaker is going to be really strong in team fights. Enchantress, I hated Enchantress, so I'm really glad to see it nerfed. That's all I have to say on that. Gyrocopter. They changed the Scepter, so it's not a global cooldown. It adds a side gunner, fires an attack automatically at random units, 600 AoE every 1.4 seconds. Similar as a rocket barrage. So this is I don't know how it'll affect it, because I don't know if it'll be like a normal attack. Will it also proc your like special damage modifiers and stuff like that? So like maybe it'll be good with a Meowner because it'll just always proc your Meowner, or like whatever you have. But I think it seems less useful than a global call down. Sorry. I think this is a nerf. I think this is a nerf. Like 1.4 seconds, fires an attack automatically at random enemies within 6. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem that great. It's just like one right click. I don't know how far you can get. I guess if you have like a bunch of like, data lists or whatever, if that also procs, it could be good. But just the fact that it's kind of random, and with your like what do we call it, spread flat cannon anyway, like you're hitting so many heroes. I don't know if it's worth getting a Scepter on Gyro at this point. Next one is Invoker. So I said Invoker's Spirit. Oh, I think that with these changes, Invoker's Quas, like maxing Quas first, is big, like hugely buffed, because mainly because of the Forge Spirit health mana change from Exhort Quas based to Quas Exhort based. So actually a long time ago, like back in like TI3 era when I first started playing Invoker, a really strong thing to do was that when you use Cold Snap and you use Force Spirit automatically had like the highest attack range that it has now. So that was just really OP because you can just perma-stun a hero and they'll die. So, but now they nerfed that. I think with this, a lot of time you can max your Quas first, so your Cold Snap is better, and also your Force Spirit has a longer attack range, instead of going for the Exhort builds, which everyone almost always does, because you want to get some crazy Sunstrikes out, you want to get some Meatballs out, but I think quas-based Invoker is gonna be okay. So synergy with Cold Snap, yeah. This does reduce the melting strike of the Forge Spirit, which decreases armor, because that requires mana. I think at level 1 you can only cast like 2 of them or something. So you can only do -2 armor, whereas before. But overall though, like I don't think anyone, not a lot of people even know about that whole melting strike thing, so should be fine. Jug is my next guy. Healing Ward now follows Juggernaut by default. Thank God. Like so many people play Juggernaut and you're like pinging the ward. You're like, dude, like move your ward. Just like, thank you, Ice Frog. Thank you, Mr. Lizard. Keeping it noob friendly. Yeah, so Lich definitely indirectly buffed by the creeps, but it's actually a pretty big buff. Like I'm excited to play Lich, even though none of these. It's not like I don't think these are really big deals. Like this is a pretty good buff, but I think that whole range creep deny thing is gonna be pretty good on Lich. Lifestealer, dude. Okay, if anyone's played against a Lifestealer this last patch with his level 1 infest into an ancient, like that's bullshit. Like at level 6, I can't fight an ancient. Like it's so hard to fight the ancient, and then you fight it and Lifestealer just pops out and it's like full health, right? Like. And the ancients have such good abilities. It's just bullshit, you know? So the fact that Infest can now only target ancients with level 2 and level 3, I very, very welcome that change, Mr. Lizard. Next one on my list is Morana. Added a Scepter, passively triggers Starstorm every 8 seconds if there are no units, blah, blah, blah. Feels more like an Alk Ags upgrade, since Morana prioritizes damage items like Deso, Manta, Mjolnir, etc. is what I wrote. Yeah, you know what? That's true. Yeah, like, I don't know if I'll, like, rush an Ags or something, you know, like, at the end of the day, your Morana, like a Carrot Morana anyway, is gonna end up being, like, 6-slotted with, like, no, good shit. Like, I don't know if you want to add an Ags for passive Starstorm every 8 seconds. Like, which is good, but by that time in the game, like, I don't know how strong your Starstorm is going to be, so, yeah. Next one on the list, Oracle. Reduce Purifying Flames cooldown. The Scepter reduces Purifying Flames cooldown from 2.25 seconds to 1 second, and lowers cast point from 0.3 to 0.1. I think that's a major buff. That's really crazy. You can deal like ridiculous amounts of damage. Each Purifying Flame, so it does like 400 nuke damage, I think, or whatever. Like, and then it heals back, yeah, but over like 9 seconds. 9 seconds, right? Over 9 seconds. So if your cooldown is 1 second for Purifying, you can just spam that shit, you know? And because it's like a 1 second cooldown, before you would get like a Yule Scepter and Purifying Flames Yules, which also debuffs. And then, you know, they'll come back down and you'll do another Purifying Flames. Because, like, by the time your cooldown is done, you can channel your Fortune's End, whatever. And, but now I think, like, maybe if you carry a Diffusal Blade, you can get a lot more DPS on it. Just Purifying Flames, Diffusal, Purifying Flames, right? Like, they actually increased, I think this was related because of that. I think they just want to go back up to Diffusal Blade. They actually added a little cooldown on it. See, Purge cooldown increased from 0 to 2 seconds. 0 to 2 seconds, and then Oracle, I think this is related. Oracle, Purifying Flames, 2 seconds to 1 second, right? So, I guess with a 0 second, you could literally spam Purifying Flames every second, and for however much mana you have, and you can get like, not like, just instant kill, right? So you can't do that anymore because Mr. Lizard decided to like nerf the diffuse a little bit, but I think that's fair. That would have been broken. This is really cool. I'm really excited to play Oracle. Give that a try. OD got nerfed. Just overall nerfs, which is not a surprise. Skywrath Mage. Oh, that's a really cool one to talk about. Mystic Flare Scepter. Cooldown 20, 10, 0 to 20 is 10, 5, but duration increased from 2.4 to 12 seconds. So that's pretty crazy. So I think that the 5 seconds cooldown to 12 second, so from 0 second cooldown to 5 second cooldown, 2.4 duration to 12 second duration, that means like it's less about throwing it down like in front of like one per unit and just bursting that unit down. But I think this is a really good change. It welcomes more team fighty things where, you know, if you have a really long stun on, you know, with your team, and then you throw down this however long Mystic Flare, it might as well be forever. Like, you'll for sure get someone down. With 12 seconds and a 5 second cooldown, I think, like, yes, it still costs a lot of mana, but provided that you have the good mana pool, it'll provide a good like zoning. You know, like when you're taking high ground, you can like just kind of place them in strategic places so that the enemy doesn't want to walk through it, right? 12 seconds is a really long ass time. You can take racks in that time. Or like when you're like fighting tower, you'll just put it like behind the tower and your enemy like has to walk around it, but they can't really because it'll walk right into your Tide Hunter or something, which can alt. Like, it's just really good zoning. So I really like that. It's a little bit more versatile. I really like the change. Storm Spirit. I just talked about it because it added a Scepter. The Vortex is a 475 AOE around your hero. I think it's like it's pretty good because it's like a stun, but I think it's like an Ags upgrade. Because I mean, it's really good if you're like team wiping and stuff like that, but you shouldn't be relying on the Storm Spirit to be your like team disabler kind of person. Like throughout the game, Storm Spirit's sort of just, you know, creating a little bit of mayhem, kind of like I am using a lot of Overwatch references, but kind of like a tracer. You know, you're just kind of zipping everywhere. You're just doing like small little shit damages. You know, finding pickoffs. You're not supposed to be running into a 5-man and like getting a 5-man electric vortex out, right? That's just, you know, when you get to that stage, I guess, you know, like you might as well, I guess, but like it's not like, oh, I'm gonna rush an Ags so that I can get a 5-man electric vortex down. Like, that's just not how you play Storm Spirit. Viper is my next hero. Poison attack is no longer an attack modifier. So with Viper already being basically like a right click hero, you don't really have to do anything with Viper. So I think that's a kind of funny buff. Because now, like, you know, your, I don't know, Desolator or whatever stacks with your poison attack. Which Viper already is just a right click hero, and now it's just like his right clicks are more stronger. More stronger. So yeah. Warlock. Shadow Word, cast range, blah blah blah. Flaming Fist. So I just wrote that he's generally buffed. I think stuff like this, like Flaming Fist damage change from 40 times, like this is a good change. These are overall just good changes. It's nice to see Warlock continually getting buffed, and no one really plays him. It's cool to see supports get buffed. Winter Wyvern. This is the Winter's Curse cooldown is buffed, reduced from 120, 110, 100 to 90. So GIF OD tips. Damn it. So Winter's Curse. Yeah. So Winter's Curse got buffed because I think it just got like way too nerfed last patch. And the Arctic Burn, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, you add the Scepter, yeah, you can fly around like almost forever, I guess, depending on your mana regen, but at the same time, I don't know. I guess like even like especially earlier on at max level. Okay, let's put it this way: at max level, to cast a 6-second Arctic Burn, which is the regular Arctic Burn duration, it'll cost 90 plus 40 times 6, which is 330 mana, rather than 90 mana that it costs to just cast the Arctic Burn for 6 seconds. So, like, I don't know, like mana wise, I don't know when that'll be advantageous to have the Scepter on Winter Wyvern. Like, I guess really late game, you don't have any mana problems. You know, it just like the 40 mana per second is just like not an issue with you. Then I think that's great. But other than that, like to just use it for 6 seconds to escape or something, it'll cost you 300. It'll cost you 330 mana versus before you bought the eggs, it'll only cost you 90 mana. I don't know how to feel about it. It's kind of a weird buff. Maybe late game it'll be OP. I don't know. I really have no idea how that's gonna work out. The last hero is Zeus. Static field no longer disables Blink Dagger. I think that is like so key because that is such a bitch thing. Like in games, always like you're walking around and you're like, the Zeus isn't even here. Like the static field is so big. It's just such a big AoE and like it's not fair. Like I can't do shit. So thank you, Mr. Lizard. That shit was so annoying. And that's pretty much it. I think this is a good patch. I like that stuff they didn't massively change too many heroes because I think last patch was actually a really good patch. Like people complain about always seeing Invoker OD. I think like seeing Invoker isn't because Invoker is too strong though. It's just that if Invoker is viable, people will play Invoker because Invoker is a fun hero to play. And I think that was true with like a lot of the heroes last patch, and I don't think last patch was that bad. I like that a lot of these heroes got more interesting. I think this is a really good patch overall. It's not too drastic, but at the same time, changes things up with new items. It changes everything, but at the same time, I feel like balance-wise, it doesn't. It makes the game more exciting, but it doesn't like shift the whole balance of the game. Overall, I think it's a great patch so far. We'll see how it plays out. Got the Manila Majors. Give OD tips, eh? I will do it. Chexican Drew. Astral Imprisonment. So yeah, Gerald nerfs. But with OD, okay, like honestly, everyone last patch, when the patch first came out, they were all like, oh yeah, OD got nerfed. And I was like, I don't know, man. I think this Arcane Orb in Steel is a huge buff. And it turned out to be a huge buff. And yeah, I'll put it out there. I can't play it properly. I'm still really used to playing like the old OD style where you like Astral Imprisonment and like get your int that way. But OD, like, with Arcane Orb, you get a few hits in, you get so massive, you just snowball. Every single team fight you snowball. And that's how OD is played now. Before that, it wasn't about the snowball, it was about slowly, Astral Imprisoning like slowly, and like you'll get more int and then you just cast a big ult, But this one, the longer you're part of the team fight, the bigger you get because of your instill, which is really cool. I think he's more like a right clicker. Yeah, thank you. One cool thing I wanted to note is I totally forgot Phoenix even had an Ags upgrade. So Phoenix with Aghanim Scepter allows you to cast Supernova on another hero. So you drag them into your Supernova, and if it goes through, the other hero is fully healed. I totally forgot about that, but basically, I guess no one bought it. I guess no one did it, and they added that it increases the number of attacks needed to kill the Supernova. Oh, that's that then. You can read through everything else, but I think those were the main things to take away from that patch. New items, Ags upgrades as expected, Ags changes, some of which were nerfs, such as Gyrocopter, changed like Earthshaker, which like less about one alt wonder and more about team fight. I'm excited to see what the game is like. I think Ice Frog is moving more towards just I don't even know it's for the spectators, but just more action-based game, just quicker, everything, just more stuff happening all the time versus like one big team fight, everyone wipes, you know? I think it's a really good change. I do think that it's influenced by esports becoming a big thing. You know, when you're watching games, you don't want to watch people farming like forever and then boom, 5-man team fight, everyone dies. You know, that's not entertaining to watch. You want small skirmishes. You want people always ganking, you know, like long drawn out fights that are really epic, and like I think that's where the game is going, and overall good patch. Anyways, that's that then. Thank you for watching, and have a good night.